back to They Did What, your source for the internet's craziest, most entertaining stories, where I go over them, analyze them, and most certainly make fun of them. Today, going to go over a story titled, Influencer Accuses Airline of Discriminating Because She's, wait for it, Too Fat. And guys, this story is all about a gal. She is a quote-unquote influencer, I guess, on TikTok or Instagram or something like that. And she's a big girl. And when I say big, I mean really big. Big like the size of a Ford Expedition. And recently, she was traveling with family, I think, to Lebanon. And when she was trying to come back home to her country, Brazil, the airline told her she has to purchase another seat because she was coming back in economy coach, and that she'd have to purchase a ticket in first class because she's too big for the seat. And like a lot of these stories go, she threw a giant fit over this because how dare she have to, because she flew on a different airline there and it wasn't a problem. But the problem is that she is so big, and I'll leave a link in the description. You guys can see, you can make up your own minds about what she looks like. She threw a fit over this. And I gotta tell you guys, this is a story that tends to pop up from time to time, and it's ridiculous. And here's the thing. In my opinion, nobody should be discriminated against because of their color or their religion or what they look like or anything like that. I'm against that type of thing. People should be able to go to a restaurant or fly on a plane or stay at a hotel or get a job, regardless of what they look like or anything like that. But a situation like flying on an airplane where you're stuck in a place for a long period of time, the seats have one size, and somebody comes there and sits there that's so big they're literally hanging over the seat belt won't go around them, they're causing discomfort to people around them, like sitting next to them, and that's an issue. And the airlines have every right to say, look, you're going to do this, if you're that large, you got to purchase another seat. Like some people buy two seats next to them, they're that big, or a seat in first class because you got a lot more room, something like that. It's not unreasonable, not to mention other issues with weight and things like that. But of course, in today's world, people throw fits over this and call it discrimination and all that stuff. Well, at the end of the day, they brought this on themselves. Because the odds are greatly, those that are that big in life, it's not because of genetic issues or a thyroid issue. It simply is because they consume so much garbage, they've become that big. They consume and overconsume garbage, no exercise, and this is what we have. This is why half the population is either overweight or obese. And unfortunately, it's going to get worse and worse. So I'm going to go through this one here. It's entertaining, but to show an example of the world we're in right now. So it starts off, it says, a woman has claimed an airline denied her the right to fly because she is, quote-unquote, too fat. Such and such, a 38 years old, an influencer and plus-size model from Brazil, accused Middle Eastern airline Qatar Airways from discriminating against her due to her size. Plus-size model? I would reword that, unless you want to put a whole lot of pluses next to her name. Her video about the alleged incident has gone viral. Well, that's a dream come true for her. Let's be honest here. In it, she explained that she, her mother, and sister and nephew were on holiday in Lebanon and on their way home to Brazil. Via Doha, when a staffer told her that she would have to purchase a more expensive first-class seat if she wanted to board the flight. However, the airline said that one of her family members failed to produce the required COVID-19 PRC test documentation to board the flight, the Daily Mail reported. The passenger in question at Beirut Airport was initially extremely rude and aggressive to check-in staff when one of her traveling party did not produce the PCR documentation for entry to Brazil, a Qatar airline spokesman told the publication. As a result, the airport security was requested to intervene as staff and passengers were extremely concerned with her behavior. In her clip, which was attracted more than 50,000 likes and thousands of comments since she shared it on Thursday, she explained she had no issues boarding an Air France flight into Lebanon, where she and her family were on holiday. Well, clearly Air France had different rules than this. These are two separate airlines. In Portuguese, she said, I bought a return ticket to Brazil through Qatar, and arriving at the time to check in, a Qatar flight attendant called my mother while another staffer were finishing our check-in and told her I wasn't welcome to board because I'm fat. Again, if you can't fit into the seats, that's a problem. How many of you guys have been on a flight? I'm sure we've all been there. I've been there, where you sit next to someone that's huge, and their arm and their body parts are leaning into your seat. It's a very uncomfortable flight. It's just not right. And so if you're that big, you got to purchase another seat. End of story. and let alone them trying to walk down that very tiny aisleway. She said that her family spent a total of $4,000 on economy seats, including her $947 ticket, only to be denied from boarding the flight. Well, if she's a so-called influencer and so-called model, makes a lot of money, she can afford the first class thing to get home, and maybe it might be time to contact a registered dietitian and make some changes, for goodness sake. She was allegedly told she needed to pay further for a first class ticket if she wanted to fly with the airline, as the seats are bigger. A Qatar Airline staffer called my mother while the lady was finishing our check-in and told her that I wasn't welcome to board because I'm fat and they weren't going to welcome me on the flight, she said. If it's a full flight and they don't have room, or the only way you can get there is to buy a first class ticket, then of course you can't get on. End of story. Outlining its policy, Qatar Airlines said any passenger who impedes upon the space of a fellow traveler and cannot secure their seatbelt or lower their armrest may be required to purchase an additional seat, both as a safety precaution and for the comfort and safety of all passengers, the Daily Mail reported. There you go. End of story. Air France obviously was okay with it for whatever reason, but this one wasn't. End of story. They had their rules for a reason. But it's easier to just call them a bunch of big meanies than to accept that maybe, just maybe, action needs to be taken here. Again, when you're the size of a Ford Expedition, those seats are designed for people of a certain size, not the size of 3 freaking people. And how in God's name is she a model? But I'm sure many of you guys have seen billboards and other advertisements of plus size. It's like, good Lord. You go from one extreme to the other. Where in the 90s you had these models from Victoria's Secret that were so skinny it looked like they hadn't eaten in 3 months, and which was grotesque, to the pendulum going the other way because they didn't want girls to have eating disorders and all that, be like that. So that changed, and now you have the exact opposite side of the pendulum when you have what you have now. And guess what? Being that large can have all sorts of health problems, diabetes, heart disease, a laundry list of problems, but nobody's talking about that because if you do that, you're insensitive and mean. It's ridiculous. The airline said it was in line with the industry practice and more other airlines. Now, what am I going to do? She said. They are denying my right to travel, but I came here by Air France and everything went well. I had no problem. And now they're denying my ticket. The frustrated tourist said while at Beirut at such and such international airport. Again, you flew a different airline there. They're requiring me to buy an expensive ticket, an executive ticket, to go back to my own country, but I came in with a normal seat ticket on a different airline. I'm desperate. They don't want to board me because I'm fat. I need to buy a business ticket, which is $2,000. I don't have this money. I don't know what to do. There's only 30 minutes until the airplane takes off. They're saying I have no right to board in the airplane because I'm fat. I don't know what to do. In her post, she said that she spent almost 2 hours begging the airline to board the flight and travel back home. No amount of begging and pleading is going to work, okay? The only way she's going to get back home is maybe on another flight going back to Brazil. The economy section would have more seats open where she can get 2 seats instead of 1 to be a little bit less costly. My mother tried everything too, and I was threatened when trying to record what they were doing, she claimed. She ended up staying at Beirut Airport, Lebanon with her mom, while her sister and nephew caught the Qatar flight back home to where she was from. She says, I'm spending money on a hotel and taxi that I didn't need. I can't afford to hang around any longer. And they said I have to pay for another fare for my mother and upgrade mine to executive. But nobody wanted to tell me. I was extremely humiliated in front of all the people in the airport, all because I'm fat. Again, it isn't just because of that. It's because it's not them judging you. It's simply in terms of like the flight and the size of the seats and all that. And at the end of the day, you know what? People have a right. They have a right to make their rules. End of story. You agree to those when you purchase that ticket. They had their rules. At the time of reporting, she was still in Lebanon. A Qatar Airlines spokesperson told the Daily Mail the passenger has been rebooked on a flight this evening, November 24th, from Lebanon. Probably when they had more spaces available in the economy section. Airline obesity policies differ in degree and detail, but decree essentially that if you don't fit in a seat with an extension seatbelt and the armrest down, you'll be charged for 2 seats or removed from the plane, according to Smarter Travel. Some airlines may do with their best to accommodate obese passengers by offering a second seat for free or refunding the advanced purchase of a second seat if the flight isn't fully booked on that day. Meanwhile, the government's the Australian Institute of Health and Welfare states that 67% of Australian adults are overweight or obese. Well, that doesn't surprise me. I don't know what Australia has to do with this particular article. So there you go, guys. Welcome to the world we are in. But if you are that big and you can't fit, maybe that's a sign that you need to do something about it. Because in spite of the whole body positivity movement, which I'm all for body positivity, I'm not for obese positivity, because all the health problems that come along with that, let alone the things that could cause people issues like on the airplane and all that. Again, if I bought a ticket for a seat and I'm sitting there next to someone and they are literally arms are over me and all that because they're so big, that's not cool. End of story. And you're that big, okay, it's your choice, but you're going to have to buy larger seats, more expensive seats, additional seats, all that. Or realize I'm in a very unhealthy weight and size. I need to take action about this, because the majority, it's not genetics or thyroid. It is because people just spent their whole life eating garbage and overeating garbage, and now misinterpreting the body positivity movement to be something that gives them an excuse to let loose, and you get the point there. Again, nobody, in my opinion, should be discriminated and be treated badly. Color, religion, race, size, how they look. But in a situation like this, when there's only so much space and the seats are a certain size, they have a right to have their rules. End of story. But it's easier to point the finger and say they're the bad guy as opposed to maybe something I'm doing isn't working here. Now, a few comments before I wrap this up. And by the way, the comments are overwhelmingly against her and people that had that entitled attitude. One person says here, shouldn't she be strapped down securely in the cargo hold? If she was allowed to roam the aisle freely, the weight distribution of the plane would go haywire and probably cause the plane to crash. Another guy says here, speaking as someone who is morbidly obese, I can fully understand how airlines frown on us when we fly on one of their planes. Most of us, no matter how hard we try, don't really fit into the small seats. And yes, parts of us do squeeze out, especially our arms don't fit on the armrests, and tend to have to share with the other passengers, and we do tend to make things uncomfortable for them. I don't consider it discrimination if they want to charge us extra or try to put us out of the way of other passengers. We should think of their comfort just as much as we think of our own comfort. Yeah, there you go. There's a guy who admits I'm morbidly obese, and and I have to buy an extra seat or whatever. And you know what? Fine. But that's rare, him having this opinion. Another guy says here, so for years, she's eaten more than her fair share of food, and now she wants a share of someone else's airplane seat. Listen, lady, someone else paid good money for their whole seat, and you don't have the right to any of it. Another guy says here, in airline jargon, it's called weights and balance. Every plane and every flight calculates average weight of each passenger. Check luggage, carry-on, fuel, distance, weather, etc. This person weighs and takes up as much space as two people. For the safety of all their passengers and crew, the airline has to adjust. Sadly, on a full flight, they cannot just assign her 2 seats. As a tall person, I have to stoop over and walk through the plane. I don't demand a bigger plane. Another guy says here, I would not want to sit next to her on a long flight or even a short flight. If she's a model, then the extra $1,000 should not be a big deal. Right. Another one says here, first class seat is a small price to pay for insisting people try to normalize bad behaviors. Just as binging and purging is unhealthy, so is uncontrolled gluttony. Not all supersized people have thyroid issues regardless of their excuses. That's what I think. Another guy says here, I'm very tall and I'm squished in airplanes. Does that mean I'm being discriminated against? No, it means planes, cars, rail cars, amusement park rides are engineered to the average size person that I cannot ride on some of them. Or if I do, then I'm very uncomfortable, or worse, I can get hurt. I just avoid those things. I'm sick of others who are on the fringes. He says, I am too fat. I'm too pretty. I'm a neutral person. I think I was born a locomotive. I think I'm too whatever, dictating what others can think and do and say because they may be offended, all because they are insecure and have mental illnesses. Now that wraps it up. There are more comments, but I think that's enough to get the point across. So, you can't make this shit up, but again, my opinion, If you're going to let yourself go that way, you got to be prepared to pay if you're going to fly on an airplane. They have their rules for a reason. But it's easier to point the finger and say the airlines are a-holes than to say maybe I'm the a-hole here, and you get the point. So every once in a while, guys, I like to throw an article out here and there about what things are going on in the crazy world we're in. All right, guys, that's it for today. Be sure to comment down below. Let me know what you think about this. And be sure to like the video, share with your friends, and subscribe. And I'll catch you next time.